Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Fox. I am Program Associate with the College of Business Administration here at Kansas State University. And today we are holding a webinar this morning in regards to our business growth and personal success, managing effort and getting results programs. I am here today with Mr. Cliff Sutton. He is with the Self-Management Group, and also Ms. Susie Otten. Cliff, would you like to say a few words?
Well, this is great follow-up to the October 30th program, and I've had some really great opportunities to talk with participants and also to get your valuable feedback. So we're going to share some of that. And also, Susie Otten is with us. Susie?
Hi, Cliff. Thanks, Jessica.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I had the privilege of participating in both seminars that were given on October 30th, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to follow up with Cliff. I am director of the Professional MBA program at Kansas State University. It is an online MBA program designed for people who are working full-time and who need the MBA in order to advance within their companies. It can be done on your own time. You don't have to take off work. So we're very proud of this program. And I'm just looking forward to working with Cliff to help me help others realize that they need this degree and help me to increase enrollment. So thank you.
Well, I think what we can do is get started. And basically the process is going to be there were three particular areas where we got a lot of feedback on evaluations and also through the debriefs. One of them is, what do I do with the performance equation? Another one was the how do I really make use of coaching for commitment combined with the admission ticket? And the final piece is the effort grid and a little bit of understanding on it. So the focus today is going to be on practical application, because that seemed to be a very important aspect. A number of you, in talking with you since, have already implemented procedures, signed up for some coaching, which is wonderful, because a coach really does help you in terms of getting these things into an implementation phase. And often they're bottlenecks or blocks that we can't see ourselves, so the coach helps you with those. And in this case, I'm the coach. I certainly look forward to working with you as well. And if you're interested in that aspect, please definitely connect up and we'll set something up. Now, the performance equation is considered the formula for success, if you will. I'm going to put up a shared screen with it, just to refresh it. Now, is that coming through okay, Jess?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Okay, I wonder why it's not sharing. Let's have a look. Share screen. Is it up there?
Yes.
Beautiful. The question was, what do I do with it? We had talked a little bit about this, Jess, and I think I jumped your intro question. I apologize for that.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. The performance equation, the formula says that performance itself is talent times habits times opportunity. Now, we wanted a couple of real live examples for that. One of them being one of my pharma managers uses the performance equation regularly as a diagnostic. He will, for example, have a meeting with his group, and they assess as a group. So he has all his, in this case, his sales reps analyze with him these 6 different areas: the talent, the habits, the opportunity. Now, this can be in reference to a new product. It could be a product they're currently looking at launching. And the beauty of it is it gives them a really great basis for discussion. So he will go through each part, which is inherent under talent, which is trainable. And by the way, welcome. I think it must be Pam, and I don't have it for the other person. Just joined.
Mr. Chris Harlow.
Well, hi, Chris. I don't know if you guys are on audio or not. You're welcome to and jump in on questions and such. It would be fantastic. And the other option, of course, is to telephone in as well if you wish. But the computers seem to be picking it up very well. So you can actually apply this to, as I described, it could be a product launch. It could be an area of challenge in the business. You can apply it to competitive situations. Let's analyze our competitors. In this case, in pharma, if they had another product that was competing with theirs, they would do the same analysis. How do they stack up, their reps, their organization, where are their strengths and weaknesses? So I think you can see where it can be a platform for just about anything. Now you can apply it in your personal life as well. It might be the logistics of am I going to switch jobs? Or does the family want to do something in particular? And in each case, look at the different aspects of it. It can be very, very powerful. So I encourage you to apply the performance equation just because it's got that capability. And Jess, how do I unshare screen here?
You'll go back to how you share. See, I don't want to do that.
Whoops, I got it. Just a minute. Just a second.
Yeah, just unshare. Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect, Cliff. Now coaching for commitment is an area where people were looking for some more ideas on how to use that. So what do you suggest for coaching for commitment in that area?
Okay, well, coaching for commitment is based on a non-directive coaching approach. And there's a tremendous power underneath inside coaching for commitment because it's a tool with a sequence of questions that cause people to dig deep, to touch their feelings as well as their thoughts. And that's sometimes missed because we look at it as, well, it's really great, it's a tool we can apply, I just ask the questions. It really helps to understand what's going on underneath there. And in fact, what you're doing is the person gets actively involved. They must become involved, and that's what brings out the commitment and the internal motivation. You know, when we're looking to change habits, one of the biggest challenges we have is, go back to Descartes, who basically said that once we have all the logical scientific side of it figured out, then we know what to do and everybody does it. Well, in practice, that's not what happens. We look at everything from dieting to regular exercise. We know what we should do. We've got it all figured out logically. And then we ask for another piece of pie. So how does that fit exactly? And one of the reasons is it's very hard to tell us anything unless it's what we wanted to do in the first place. This sort of non-directive questioning process causes the individual to think. The how do you feel about a subject that they've chosen means that they are going to activate their interest as a person in that subject and then build a plan around it. It's very different than being told what to do and here are the steps. So that's why coaching for commitment works so well, and it's so important to get the pieces in place and get the individual to really expand on it. Now I've got the questions up here. Just a sec, I'm going to share screen first. And you should be able to see those questions in the middle of the screen. Are they coming up okay?
Not yet.
Okay, hang on. Share screen.
There we go.
Okay. Are the questions showing up now?
They are, correct.
Beautiful. Just to quickly look these over, how do you feel about causes someone to get into a feeling rather than just what do you think about? There's a big difference between the two. So we connect it up with something that's of interest to them. Now, a lot of people think, well, I got to pick something big. But in reality, we're starting a process here. And what's so important is to go through the sequence. It can be about something very simple. It could be about providing 3 documents for a meeting later in the week. It's something that someone could look up and get easily. But the important thing is they thought about it, or they thought about it, they checked in with their feelings, and then they realized what they wanted to do. In that case, it might be to read the documents and be prepared to discuss them, figure out what they need to do to get them. So now this process, you see how all this processing is taking place? Susie, you and I talked about this and the difference it makes. Do you find that as you explore these things more deeply?
Yes, definitely. And
What
I
happens?
during our coaching sessions that you use this process over and over when you're talking to me. And so I think how it's become very natural for you, and that's what.
How does it feel to you as do you feel like you're being grilled, or?
No, but I just sat here as you were going over these questions, and I thought, duh.
These sound familiar.
What he's been doing with me on the phone.
You really didn't know it was even happening at the time, did you?
No.
That's interesting.
Till now. Well, that's quite an aha. Well, that's the idea. How do we bring it out so that the person really owns it? You'll hear over and over how athletes visualize what they're going to do, how they practice, and in many ways this is a very similar process. We get completely immersed in it, finally make a commitment, get the details covered, and then agree to talk about it later. So what you're doing now in this first phase when you start using it as a manager is think about it from the point of view, I want to create these habits. I want to get this ball rolling, get these folks started. So picking a small thing is a good thing. The temptation is to pick the biggest problem you have and finally solve it. Well, that can kind of blow up because it is a big problem, and you need practice. One of the things about using this process is you can practice it everywhere, and you just wouldn't believe the difference it'll make in your comfort zone if you use this with even transparently say to people, I'm using this process. And when you're talking with the family, you can use it with your spouse or friends to get yourself so that you can ask these questions in a manner that will really help you even plan a vacation if you wish. Does that help in terms of how to use it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, as you get deeper and the commitments get bigger, it starts to be a center pin around the way you're going to work together. But what's great about building it slowly is that you now have a foundation and a habit of making these commitments and keeping them. The next thing you know, that you're always going to meetings with the excited anticipation, we're really going to get into this thing, we're really going to achieve a lot, and it will never occur to you that the person wouldn't have the material done for the meeting because the pattern's in place. Making the rep will not make commitments they can't achieve because they know that it won't work out in the long run. Okay? Now, what about admission ticket?
Yes, Cliff, we did have a number of people that had questions about admission tickets, precisely wanted to get clear on where and how to use it and grow their people specifically. Okay.
Well, one of the things about admission ticket is it can become like an on-off switch. However, the real value of it is underneath that. And the value of the admission ticket is that it ensures that the person digs in and does what they said they were going to do and learns what they need to learn. And it's a different, that's why the emotional side dissipates. If you, as a manager, if someone comes to a meeting without completing their admission ticket, particularly as they're getting used to this process, it's so important not to charge that meeting with emotion. It's really important to have that discussion based on the fact that the work or investigating or effort needed to happen before the meeting could really be of great value is what's really important. So therefore, rebooking it is not in any way a punishment or addressing a very negative situation. What it is rebooking it so you can actually complete the work. Can you see how that keeping it low risk initially is helpful? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Because we talked about the real attention getter grabber of the rep from Chicago who ended up taking his boss back to the airport, and everybody sort of, I think, felt that in their gut as, wow, that was rough. However, if we look at an admission ticket being as simple as completing a call to a particular client to ask a question, and the rep comes to meet with the manager after at the appointed time and says, well, I'm sorry, I meant to, but I didn't get the call made. And the manager says, when will you make the call? We don't have anything to discuss it because we don't have any information. So the rep says, well, I can do it tomorrow afternoon. Now, that's not nearly as drastic as the boss getting on a plane and going back to Chicago. But the message is, do what you said you're going to do so that we can work together, so we can grow together. Otherwise, all that planning that went into the coaching for commitment doesn't really work. So to kind of evolve emission ticket from a yes-no type scenario to, you know, if this person continually makes commitments and let's say that they develop that habit over time of making and keeping commitments, we can work together in a powerful way. And what will gradually happen is the manager will work with the people who make and keep the commitments because they achieve a lot. Does that position it better?
Yes, for me it does.
Now, one of the things that we can take as an extension to this whole conceptual area, and this was something that came up repeatedly in the sessions, in the debriefs, because we did profile debriefs, and I thank all of you. I think we've done over half of the group in terms of debriefs. But one of the things that came up was this overlapping of time management. Well, if you combine this coaching for commitment piece and admission ticket, the impact is incredible. Because what starts to happen is your time is spent with people who are putting in efforts and achieving where it's bringing results. So it is the fastest route to results. Effort is the channel. And by using a combination of coaching for commitment, we get people really motivated to do things, actually completing them, so that the manager finds that they get very selective. And a couple of folks were very clear that one of the things they shifted was they only were isolating maybe 4 or 5 things in the day that made the difference for that day. These are things that I absolutely will do. One of those might be a meeting with a rep who had prepared a presentation for a particular client, that sort of thing. But in each case, they were shifting their focus to things that mattered a great deal and putting the rest of them, the to-do stuff and busy work, on the back burner further. Tough choices sometimes because we all want to do everything and we want to please everybody. One of the problems is if you get caught up in minutiae or things that don't make any difference on that effort result format, then the time is lost. I think that's where it can get confusing. Is that anything I'm missing there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay. That's great. Perfect. So another area of interest and questions that our participants had was the effort grind, and you kind of mentioned grid, excuse me, and you kind of mentioned that earlier. We had a great question on Golden Eagles and how to coach them. Could you give more information and maybe speak a little more about coaching all groups, not only Golden Eagles, but all groups for that matter?
Okay, let's see if we can. I'm going to switch this screen again.
Okay.
And bring up, I have the effort grid here. And share screen only. And I'm going to switch this to a viewing, to a presentation view. We talked about the effort grid. Is that coming up okay?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, beautiful. The effort grid, notice the position of the admission ticket. This is really important. We go back to that time management. And this can come across sort of as the hammer, but that's not the meaning. The meaning is around productivity. And I know I keep mentioning emotions, but it's easy to get upset when someone hasn't done what they said they do when they get to a meeting. And in fact, the important thing is whether it was done or not, so that you can proceed with coaching and with actually putting a specific effort into gaining some more business or whatever your particular purpose is. At the end of the day, it's usually directly or indirectly related to results. So what happens is the admission ticket allows you to focus on this. I don't know if you can see that on the Golden Eagles and the Effort Eagles side of the equation. Now, this is an interesting exercise that you can do if you determine based on that. Just let me pop back for a second. You can see that if you look at someone with good talent or poor talent, good or poor effort, and just do a quick thumbnail. Now, I think we did some of this in the program of who are your Golden Eagles and who are your Effort Eagles, who are your talent traps and your miracle traps. This percent is really simple. Just simply do a thumbnail sketch of where am I spending my time. And we will find often managers are spending a lot of time over here on talent traps and miracle traps. And that's where the approach that if the work's done, the individual immediately shifts from the right side to the left side. If it's not done, the time you spend is absolutely minimal. Okay? That's powerful because it can shift your active time with your reps by, I've seen as much as 50% shift over to the left side where it really is productive. Now I'm hoping this has the split. For coaching Golden Eagles, one of the characteristics that we see coming out over and over again is Golden Eagles do not get enough attention. They're your top producers, and it's not that you want to spend a lot of time with them unless that's what they want. Golden Eagles are responsible for probably half or better of production in most regions. So you look at time spent with them is really time well spent. And one of the traps you can slip into is that, well, they're doing great. I really don't need to spend a lot of time with them. And in fact, you may not need to spend a lot of time, but it's important to spend the right amount of time, whatever they need to keep them producing as Golden Eagles and happy working with you, so they, for one thing, don't fly away, and for another, that they're recognized for the high value they present. Now, I know there were a number of questions that we went over this pretty quickly at the end. I'm hoping this will give you a little better time to take a look at the kinds of things you can do. These sorts of efforts, coaching and consulting as required, whatever they need, reinforce their efforts, back them up, provide backup in terms of whatever resources you can that they request or that you see will help them. Mentoring is wonderful because very often Golden Eagles like to bring along high effort people. Leadership opportunities, if Golden Eagles are suited to management, and I say that because a number of salespeople are salespeople and want to be salespeople, and promoting them to management based on their performance is risky, because you may find out they're not really manager material or not terribly interested, but just felt they should move. You lose a great salesperson and gain a mediocre manager. This is where you can truly go with the partnership piece. It's really an opportunity. Secondly, the effort eagles. It's really important to reinforce their effort, because keep in mind their talent is developing, so they may not always get rewarded from their efforts. They have to learn which efforts are going to work. So they need to hear from you that they're doing a great job, and of course coach them for skill. You develop the confidence partly with the coaching, and also this process where you're coaching for commitment causes people to dig deep inside, and their competence increases dramatically. Along with that comes confidence, and I know you've seen it as managers as you develop a charger or a go-getter, how their confidence blossoms as they achieve and feel more competent that they can do the job, and they just start to excel, and also they start to set expectations that are incredible for themselves. They're perfect for mentoring with Golden Eagles, and it's really important in general not to ask Golden Eagles to mentor talent traps or miracle traps, because it's tempting to think this guy's great, he'll be able to help this other person. Golden Eagles generally do not do well with people who will not work hard or are low tempo. Most important is, will they work? Because if they're low effort people, they get frustrated very quickly. We look at talent traps. These folks are usually producers, but they produce to a certain level. They don't reach typically to go beyond a certain level. So the temptation is to coax them to get them to, I know you can do it, I know you can do a lot better, but the fact is they'll only do a lot better if they want to. And they'll often win contests because they'll turn up the burners since they wanted to go to Hawaii. Otherwise, the kind of approach you can take is highlight a couple of things, very much use the admission ticket process, reduce their profile, because you don't want your effort eagles looking at them as role models. Just do enough and coast. It's not really what you want. What will tend to happen is talent traps, as you develop more effort in Golden Eagles, they'll have to keep upping their game to keep up with the pack. And you can decide if they're working with you, whether you want to keep them or whether they're falling behind. They can be very good producers. It's just the time you spend, unless they're actively improving, will not make much difference. And it will take your time, and it will frustrate you because you know their potential is great. Miracle traps, can't spend much time here. That's where the admission ticket is wonderful. If they'll put in the effort, they immediately shift over to effort eagles. Otherwise, it's very difficult to justify time spent because most of the time they're passing through. I'm going to just touch on this comment. Coaching is not telling people what to do. It's giving them a chance to examine what they're doing in the light of their intentions. Kind of a fancy way of saying it gives them a chance to think about and feel what's important to them, and then have an environment where they can make a commitment relative to that. And I'm going to shift back. How's that feel on the... I wanted to spend more time on it, but it felt like a lecture.
No, that was perfect.
Well, one of the questions we also got was around, and managers asked this question, how do I develop as a manager? How do I develop myself as a self-manager? And one of the keys is it's almost like take for example, the performance equation and use it for yourself. Does that make sense? So you actually go through those aspects for anything like we talked about, in which might be well, I was working with a life insurance agent this week, and she was assessing the aspects of the performance equation in terms of her own business because she was getting frustrated with the number of leads she was finding, which is always a challenge, or can be certainly in the insurance business. And then we ended up in the habits and behaviors and attitude section. And it was really interesting because we started looking at what really works and what doesn't work. And she was finding that cold calling to lists of people wasn't working very well, so that was a miserable experience and minimized it. Then looked at other things like relating to a specific group that she specialized in. In this case, it was home insurance. That seemed to be a market that she did well in, and she could develop as the go-to person in that area. So what happened was we were able to assess each part and then also check out the attitude that she had when she was making these calls, particularly follow-up calls, which was really interesting because these are where people have said, yes, I'm interested. And sometimes we get casual at that point, which is the exact opposite of what we need to do, which is turn on our energy and get as excited and psyched as we can to call someone who's already well along the way and make sure that they're feeling the positive, great attitude they had when they made the decision in the first place or were forming it. So she was realizing she wasn't always doing that. So that was a very direct use of the performance equation. Interestingly enough, that was developed by using the coaching for commitment process. Okay? So it kind of, one supported the other. As far as developing as a self-manager, you can ask yourself those same questions. How do I feel about what would I like to accomplish? And one of the things that is really important is rewarding yourself. And that can be a pat in the back or recognition or talking to yourself in the mirror or giving yourself tickets for you and your spouse or friends to go to the movies and actually doing it. I did that, and that was great. And this is what we're going to do. It's huge when it comes to self-care. That it's a natural for life balance as well. Now, I think we also talked a little about future. Jess, there were a few different things people had asked for, the types of programs along these same lines. Mm-hmm. Have you got those there?
I do.
Because I don't have that sheet.
I'd be more than happy to share that. So as Cliff mentioned, we asked in our evaluations what kind of sessions would you like to see included in our future programs that we do. One of them simply stated just more of this, more of what Cliff has been doing, what he's gone over, and the information that has been provided has been really enjoyed. More in depth, I suppose, of what's already been covered. Our participants have really enjoyed the role play aspect of things and possibly incorporating more of that into that. Dealing with difficult employees was a topic of interest. Sales management kind of go hand in hand of kind of what we've been doing, but maybe as the previous person had mentioned, maybe more in depth on those, so to speak. Another participant had mentioned something about growing into leadership versus one who is already geared for leaders. So maybe more leadership based is kind of what I'm understanding for that. Managing effort, how to utilize time spent on HPAs was another suggestion. Also, self-management topic explored for application to self, not just covering it on others. was another suggestion as well for future programs.
Okay, well, in some ways what's coming through is that these open dialogues we had during the class where there were real examples, like we could deep dive into coaching in general, coaching scenarios, coaching difficult, let's say challenging employees, which really means they're challenged because we don't know exactly what to do. And a few of the things we can do in a case like that is go back to the basic, go back to things like the performance equation, and then behaviorally even ask yourself at what point in the commitment process is this thing breaking down. And it's so important for a manager to own their part, but not to own the other guys, because it takes two to make these things work. And that's where transparency is so important, because the manager is saying, hey, I can help you here, but you gotta get in the game with me. So it's something we really need your feedback for, as to focus. And then we can deep dive into these sections. Just about any one of these areas we talked about today could be a 3-hour program very easily, especially if we do some setup whereby you bring your real situations to the class, and we as a group form a brain trust to dig into them. So please, Jess, you're going to email the maybe an MP3 and an MP4 of this program out.
Correct.
So people can listen or watch, or whichever appeals. Well, I'll also send you some PDFs with the performance equation. I would encourage you to do things like blow up the PDF onto, even if it's an 8.5 by 11, and laminate it. And one of my managers, actually several do, put it on the wall behind the chair where the person's going to be sitting in their office. so that they can follow through the questions. And another way of doing it is to put it in a 3-ring binder or something that they carry. The same for the performance equation and the effort grid, because there's nothing like a graphic when you're talking with someone to go through. I'd also encourage emails, comments. If you're interested in the coaching piece, I'll follow up as well with, we're starting a program with twice a month coaching. It'll be about the first week of December. And it's got a 25% discount for students of the program. And it will go for 8 weeks. That comes to about $150 for 8 weeks. I think that's it for now. How does that sound to everybody?
Susie, you have anything else? Cliff, do you have anything else you would like to add?
Just a big thank you. And Jessica, thank you for all the effort and work you've done on behalf of Kansas State and the programs like this. And also, I noticed your ratings were very high on the evaluation.
Well,
supporting the program.
They were all very high for every section. So I think we're on the right track. And thank you, Cliff, for sitting in today and providing us with your insight and knowledge. And thank you, Susie, for joining us today and being a part of the conversation. And thanks to all of you for either watching today or the ones that are going to watch this recording in the future. Please be on the lookout for future programs that we'll be holding. Cliff and I are kind of in the planning process now, hopefully at the beginning of the year, to roll out some future programs for 2015. So if there's not anything else, I think that concludes this morning's webinar. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.